Hello everyone. In this video, we will learn about various aggregate functions used in SQL. What is this aggregate function? It is a function which performs a calculation on multiple values and returns a single value. Usually in the SQL syntax, we generally use select from where, select column names, then from table name, and in where clause we will be putting the conditions. But when we are using this aggregate function, we will be using another clause along with the select statement, which is called group by statement and having clauses. So I will describe about this in the later part of this video. Now let us see what are the various aggregate functions used in SQL. So some of the commonly used aggregate functions are average, minimum, min, max, sum, count. So average, it finds the average value for a particular column depending upon the condition. Minimum, it gives the minimum value from a particular column, and maximum gives the maximum value. Sum gives the sum of the values from that particular column based on the conditions which you had given, and count gives the number of values present in a particular column. So SQL min and max functions, as I said, min function returns the smallest value of the selected column, and max function returns the largest value of the selected column. So we will see the syntax for min and max functions. So the syntax for min is like this: select, then after that we have to give this aggregate function min, and then whichever column we want to find the minimum value, that column name we have to give here. So select min, column name, then from which table that column belongs to, which table, that table name we have to give here. So from table name and where condition. So if you want to give some conditions based on which we want to select the minimum from a particular column, that condition we can give here. Similarly, the max syntax is also in the same way. Only thing is, instead of min, here we have max. So select max, column name, from table name, where condition. Then another aggregate functions which is used in SQL are count, average, and sum functions. So count, as I already said, it returns the number of rows that matches the specified criterion, and average returns the average value of a column. Then sum returns the total sum of a column based on the condition. So we will see the syntax of each of this aggregate function. So for count, what we do is count. This is the syntax. So for that we will be using select count. So after the select clause, we have to give this aggregate function count, and which column we are going to count the value. So that column name we have to give, and from which table, that table name we have to give here, from table name and where condition, which based on which condition we are going to count. So that condition we can give here. If condition is not there, then you don't have to give this where condition. Then if we want to use average aggregate function, we can use the syntax select. So the syntax for all this aggregate function remains the same. It is like select from table name where condition. Only thing is, after the select, whichever aggregate function we are using, we have to use that. For count, we are using count, then column name. For average, we are using average and column name. Remaining statements are the same. And for sum also, we are just giving select sum, column name, and from table, and the conditions we have to give. So the syntax for the statements in the syntax are same. Only thing is, this keyword for the aggregate function is different for different aggregate functions. Now coming on to this null values and this aggregate functions, for example, let us find the total of all salaries. Then this one, suppose we'll be selecting, we are finding the sum of all the salary, then we will be giving the syntax like this: select, then the aggregate function is sum, so we can directly use sum, and suppose the column name is salary, then we can put that salary inside here. So sum salary, this is the column name, and from the table name, suppose we are finding the sum of the salaries from the table instead instructor, then we can give like this. So here one thing we need to remember is that when we are using the aggregate function, all the aggregate functions, aggregate operations except the count ignores tuples with null values on the aggregate attributes. Means remaining all functions ignores the rows which is having null values, but count doesn't ignore. So here if this one says sum, the aggregate function is used as sum, so it ignores the null amount. So finally we will be getting the result as null if there is no non-null amount. Then if there is no non-null amount, then the result will be obviously null in this particular case. And for other aggregate functions, it will be ignoring the null values. So here if we have to suppose if collection has some table, we have only null values as the collection, then count will be returning 0 because count will be considering the null value, and all other aggregates will return null because all aggregate operations except the count ignore tuples with null values on the aggregate attributes. Now the aggregate function, let us see some example here. Let us find the average salary of instructors in the computer science department. So we have a table named instructor, and we want to find the average salary of instructor. So we can use the aggregate function average here. So what we do is select average, then salary is the column we are considering. From table name is instructor, then we have to give a condition depending upon what result we want. So here it is given, find the average salary of instructors in the computer science department. So we need to check the condition where suppose department name is one column and several departments are there in that particular column, then we will be giving the condition where department name is equal to computer science. So this will be evaluating, average will be evaluating only for those rows this condition is true, that is department name is computer science. So we'll be getting the average salary from the instructor table. Another example is find the total number of instructors who teach a course in the spring 2010 semester. So the same thing, we can find the total number of instructors. Number means it is a count, so we can use the aggregate function count. So we'll be using select count. Then I distinct this for avoiding the duplicate value. So distinct ID from this teachers is a table name teachers, where because here it is given teach a course in the spring and 2010. So two things has to be matched, that it should be a spring semester and the year should be 2010. So we can put in a where condition, semester is equal to spring and year is equal to 2010. See, please note that the semester and year are all columns in the table. For the example table, I am not drawing the table here. Please assume that the table name is teachers and we have a column ID, we have a column semester, we have a column year, we have a column salary, and we have a column department name. So here we can actually find the count, the total number of instructors you teach a course in the spring by giving this query. Now suppose we want to find the number of tuples in the course relation. So suppose we have a table named course. So course is the table name, and if we want to find the number of tuples in the table or the relation course, so tuples means the number of rows. So how will you find that? We can use number means we can use the aggregate function count. So we can use select count. So the moment when we are giving the star means it will be counting all the rows. So count star we can give count star from course. That means we are counting all the rows, the number of rows present in the table course. So these are the examples for aggregate functions. And next, coming on to this group by statement. In the starting of this lecture, I mentioned about this group by statement. This is a clause similar to the select from where clause. This is an additional clause which is used along with the aggregate function because the group by statement we can actually group the same values into a summary rows. So if you have so many, suppose in a table you have various customers, and suppose in the table you have the name of customers and the customers from different countries. So we can actually group the customers belonging to a particular country. So for that we can use this, an example where we can use group by statement. Similarly, we can use this group by statements from where we want to group certain things, similar things into a summary row. So basically, when you are using this group by statement, please make sure that this group by statement should always follow the conditions in the where clause and must precede the order by clause if one is used. So if you are using an order by clause, then it should be group by should be given before that, and it should be after the where clause. So this group by statements are often used along with the aggregate functions count, max, min, sum, average to group the results set by one or more columns. So syntax is like this. We'll be giving select, then column names, then from table name, then where condition. So you can give the condition here. So select from where is the typical SQL syntax, the normal SQL syntax. Then along with this, as I said, if you are using this group by statement, it should follow the where clause. So group by statement should be after the where clause. So here we can say after where condition we are using this group by. Then the column name. So which all columns you want to put in a group, that one we can just group according to that column. So group by column names, then order by column names. So this is the syntax for group by statement. So we'll see an example also. So let us see, this one is to find average salary of instructors in each department. So we have a table, instructor table. Okay, the table name is instructor, and this table has columns, names, ID, name, department name, and salary. So what we are supposed to do is we want to find the average salary of instructors in each department. So under this department name, we can see that so many departments are there: biology, computer science, electrical engineering, finance, history, music, physics. So what we are supposed to do is we want to find the average salary of instructors in each department. So each department we have to take the average salary of the instructors who are teaching in that particular department. So here we can use the group by statement. So what we do is we can use select. So what in the select clause, what all column names you want to display in the result, those column names you have to give there. So select, we are just giving department name, then comma. Now this one we are using average. So what is this one, average? We are using an aggregate function. So average salary. So we know that we are supposed to find the average salary of instructors. So average salary. So we are finding the average of the salary. What we are doing is we are finding this average of the salary as average salary. So we are renaming the average salary as the column name as to average salary from instructor. Instructor is the table name. Then group by department name. So what we are doing, we are finding the average salary, but we are grouping it according to the department name. So here we can see department name biology. Here we have only one salary, then it is 72,000. And in computer science we can see there are three instructors whose salaries are given here. So we have to find the average of this and put it. So this statement along with the aggregate function in the group by statement, the result will be like this. We'll be having the department names, all the department names will be displayed, and then we have this average salary. So here in the select statement you can see we have given department name and then average salary column. So those two columns only will be displayed in the output. So department name, so all the names are there, then average salary. So this average salary is department wise. So average salary of each department we have found out. So computer science average salary is 77,333. So here we can see when you take this average of these three rows, we'll be getting this one. So similarly for all other departments. So here we have found the average salary of instructors in each department. Then again, when we are using this attributes, when we are using this group by statement, we should be very careful when we are writing this SQL statements, because it may lead to error sometimes. Because for example, for a group by, when you are using a group by statement, the attributes in select clause. Attributes in select clause means which all attributes you are using in this select clause. Okay, select, here I have used the clause in the select clause, I have used the attributes department name, ID, then average salary. So these three things I have used here. Now attribute means this the column name. Column names, attributes are represented in each column. Okay, so attributes in the select, we should be please remember that attributes in the select clause outside of aggregate function. Outside of aggregate function means in the select clause the attribute name outside of aggregate function in select clause. So outside means whichever is not taken into this aggregate function. So salary is not there. Outside means we have to select this department name and ID. So these are the attributes outside the aggregate function. So that must appear in group by list. So whenever we are using this group by statement, make sure that the attributes present in the select clause outside the aggregate function should appear in group by statement. So in this particular case, we can see there are two attributes which is outside the aggregate function. So department name and ID are the attributes which are outside this one. So from instructor group by, we have used only one attribute out of this two, group by department name. So here ID is also there, which is outside this aggregate function, that is not present here. So this one is an erroneous query. So such type of query will give some error. So attributes in select clause outside of aggregate functions must appear in group by list. Now coming on to this having clause, this is like it is added into the SQL because where keyword could not be used with aggregate function. So when we are using an aggregate function, so if it is in a where condition, if there is no aggregate function, then you can directly use where condition, not an issue. But if in the where clause, if you want to use an aggregate function, you can't use along with the where clause. For that we have to use another clause called as having clause. So if we want to use aggregate function in a condition, then you have to use having clause. So the syntax is like this: select column names from table name where condition. So where condition you can give here, then group by column names, then having condition. So this where condition won't be having any aggregate function, but this, when we are using having clause, means there is an aggregate function present here. So aggregate function, if the condition involves any aggregate function, then we have to put it inside having clause. Then having we can use here order by column names. So we'll see an example for using this one. For find the names and average salaries of all departments whose average salary is greater than 42,000. So here we want to find the name and average salary of all departments whose average salary is greater than 42,000. So here what we do is the normal one, select department name, because we want to find the names of all the departments. So department name, then average salary. So here we are using an aggregate function, average salary. Then from which table? From table name instructor. Then what do you have to do? We have to select salaries of all departments whose average salary. So we have to group by department. So every department we are finding the average salary. So we are grouping it by department name. Then is great, the condition is greater than 40, average salary is greater than 42,000. That means our condition involves an aggregate function, because we are going to compare average salary which is greater than 42,000. So we can't put that aggregate function in a where condition. So for that we have to use having clause. So what we do, we will be putting having average salary greater than 42,000. So here we can't use where average salary, because average is an aggregate function. So aggregate function we can't use along with a where clause. For that we are using this having clause. So having average salary greater than 42,000. So one more thing you need to note is that the predicates in the having clause are applied after the formation of group. So here you can see here we are forming the group. This one, see, predicate of in the having clause are applied after the formation of the group. Then here the group is formed, and here we are using this having clause, whereas predicate in the where clause are applied before forming group. So when you are using the where clause, you can see that the group by is formed after the where clause, but when you are using the having clause, you can see that the group by is formed before that having clause. So this is so with this we have covered all this aggregate functions which is used in SQL, and I have mentioned about all the commonly used aggregate functions, and how to use this group by statement and having clause along with the aggregate function. Hope you understood how to use this aggregate function and the syntax for using the aggregate function. Please subscribe and share the video. Thanks for watching. Thank you all.